Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University. School of Education, SOA. Postgraduate Diploma in Adult Education, PGDAE. May 002 Policy Planning and Implementation of Adult Education in India. Block 1 5-Year Plans and Adult Education. Unit 1 Current Adult Education Policy and Programs, our Overview. 1.0 Introduction. In Units 2 and 4 of Block 1 of CNERSC MAE 001. You studied the origin and development of adult education programs in India during the last 100 years. In this unit, you will be familiarized with the current adult education policy and programs in the country. The major thrust of the current adult education policy revolves around the continuing education program, as India has already implemented literacy campaigns in 593 districts out of 600 districts. The policy has been developed the National Literacy Mission in consultation with different stakeholders, state literacy missions, state resource centers, Zilla Saksharta Samitis, Jana Shikshan Sansthans, non-governmental organizations, academicians and activists. 1.1 Objectives. After studying the unit, you would be able to understand the current policy towards adult education in India, identify the important features of ongoing programs, and study the pattern of allocation and utilization of funds for adult education. 1.2 Current Adult Education Policy and Programs. The current adult education policy is centered on continuing education, CE program formulated and introduced in 1995 and revised in 1999. The program was conceived after the conclusion of the TOT all post-literacy campaigns in different districts. It aims at providing lifelong learning opportunities to all the sections of society. It rests on the premise that basic literacy, post-literacy, and continuing education need not be viewed as totally separate programs, but should be seen as forming a coherent learning continuum. The aim of the continuing education program is to create an enabling environment which provides an opportunity for lifelong learning for all. Though the program is targeted towards every member of the community, there is a special focus on non-literates, neo-literates and those who have had little or no formal education. Continuing education centers seek to achieve this aim. Conceived as a place for learning, the CEC functions as a provider of programs for basic education, post-literacy, equivalency, income-generating activities and quality of life. It is a center for community functions, a place to upgrade skills, and for coordinating the services of governmental agencies. Each CE center is expected to function as a teaching learning center for non-literates and neo-literates, serve as a library and reading room and venue for group discussions, vocational training programs and skill upgradation, and provide extension facility for other development departments, promote sports, adventure, recreational, and cultural activities, and an information window, and above all as a community center. The activities to be taken up in a center library can be summarized as follows: A. Reading sessions. B. Exchange of books. C. Discussion sessions. D. Mobile distribution through cycles, etc. A. Information dissemination. T. Book exhibitions and displays. Government of India, 2002. The target group of CE programs includes neo-literates who have completed functional literacy post-literacy courses under TLC, IPLC or other programs, school dropouts, pass-outs of primary schools and non-formal education programs, and all other members of the community interested in availing opportunities for lifelong learning. 1.2 Main features of continuing education centers. The CE guidelines stipulate that each CEC should have 3 rooms, a room for the library, a hall for indoor activities other than the library, and a store. The center must also have facilities for drinking water and toilets. The layout may be as per local traditions and style, but the building must be well lit, airy and user-friendly, in order that the community owns the CEC right from the beginning. It is essential that local people are associated with the design, construction and interior decoration of the center. The name given to the center by the village education committee should be prominently displayed. In the main hall, at least 2 charts prepared by neo-literates of the village should be displayed containing the following information. Information in chart 1, it covers the following: postal address of the center, administrative status, panchayat head, village head, population, male-female, literacy, male-female, main income generating activity, infrastructure, ongoing government schemes, facilities in the center, library, timings, games, information, any other facilities, Information in Chart 2. It should depict the village map prepared by means of the PRA technique involving local participants. The map should indicate location of CEC, schools, railway station or bus stand, structure and design, water resources, health center, government offices, other places of interest. The charts must be given a suitable caption by those preparing them, such as Know Your CE Center, My Center, etc. In the library, the list of books available, subject-wise and level-wise, must also be displayed. The information charts and the list of books in the library should be updated at regular intervals. Other items to make the interior beautiful should also be kept. The learners should be given the responsibility for the upkeep, cleanliness and maintenance of the center. The prarak should be able to motivate small groups to take this responsibility by rotation so that all are involved over a period of time. The overall management of the scheme of continuing education rests at the district level, with the Zilla Saksharta Samiti, ZSS, or the District Literacy Committee. Funds for the program will be provided to the ZSS by the National Literacy Mission Authority I State Literacy Mission Authority. The basic unit of the CE program is the Continuing Education Center, CEC. Each CEC is expected to cater to the learning needs of a population of 2,500. Each CEC is manned by 2 praraks, prarak and an assistant prarak, who coordinate various activities of the center. For a cluster of 10 to 15 CECs, 1 CEC is designated as a nodal CE center. Government of India, 1999, 1.2.2 Role of praraks. Following are the roles of praraks. A. Establishing the center and arranging the layout. Distribution of space. Preparation of information charts. Display of charts, posters prominently. Contacting, informing community about the services provided by the center. Getting it inaugurated by a community leader. Updating the information charts at fixed intervals. Maintaining the furniture and equipment with the help of local people. B. Establishing a library and reading room. Designing the layout. Arranging the furniture, bookshelf, according to the layout design. Arranging books, newspapers and magazines, print and non-print, in a systematic and reader-friendly manner. Scheduling the working hours of library and reading sessions. Maintaining issue and stock register. Displaying new arrivals. Conducting and facilitating reading sessions. Identifying reading naming needs and preferences of the community. Communicating reading learning needs and preferences of community. Communicating reading learning needs and preferences to the ZSS for supply of relevant material. Knowing the content of each title procured in the library. Providing feedback to the ZSS about relevance and utility of reading material. C. Organizing lecture, demonstration sessions on developmental activities, government schemes and programs. Identifying the met topics as per community requirements. Communicating these to the ZSS. Informing the community about the date and time of scheduled activity. Making physical and other arrangements for these activities and recording the minutes of such deliberations, sessions. D. Organizing sports and games. Listing local popular sports and games in the area. Management and funding. Fixing up timings of sports and games. Maintaining contact liaison with youth clubs, Mahila Mandals, etc. Organizing sports activities. A. Organizing cultural activities. Identifying local folk art forms, street plays, dance, music, bhajans, etc. Identifying artists. Securing their cooperation for organizing cultural programs and training the beneficiaries. F. Management of Information Center. Identifying areas of information requiring dissemination. Receiving information regarding various developmental programs, disseminating the information to community. Collecting and displaying information of the center's village, such as crops, population, education institutions, occupation, health facilities, other government departments. Updating information charts in the center. Assisting in environmental building activities of different departments. G. Organizing special programs for women. Identifying activities for special programs. Forming self-help groups. Running and sustaining these self-help group. H. Miscellaneous, 1.2. D. Mobilizing community resources for sustaining the CE program. Managing finances of the center. Preparing and submitting reports to nodal CECI ZSS. Networking with other agencies, NGOs, clubs in the area. Record management. Maintaining records separately for each kind of activity. Weeding out records after prescribed time. Point 3. Role of Assistant Praraks. Main role of Assistant Prarak is to run the literacy center by conducting survey to identify eligible neo-literates and non-literates in the area. grouping identified learners according to their literacy skills, preparing a time schedule for running the center, setting up the literacy center, putting up the posters, making a congenial seating arrangements, arranging books and teaching learning aids, proper lighting arrangements in the room, conducting the literacy class as per time schedule, maintaining relevant records registers for the center such as attendance register, survey records, etc., monitoring attendance of learners, assessing progress of learners' achievements, guiding coaching learners for external evaluation, Government of India, 2003. 1.2.4 Role of Nodal Prereks. Since a nodal prerek is none other than one of the prereks, in addition to his responsibilities of prerek in CEC, he performs the following roles. A. Supervision of CECs. It includes supervising the following: distribution of books and other materials supplied by ZSS to CECs, management of library and reading room, maintenance of accounts for corpus fund and membership fee, if any. B. Monitoring and evaluation, receiving and reviewing monitoring reports from CECs, consolidating monitoring reports and sending them to the ZSS, evaluating community participation in the CE program. C. Liaison and coordination, maintaining liaison, coordination between prereks at the ZSS, coordination with Mandal, Block Development Officer. 1.2.5 Different programs of continuing education centers. The continuing education scheme of the National Literacy Mission envisages different types of programs which would provide neo-literates an opportunity to acquire different skills and thus move towards self-sustenance and self-reliance. A CE project comprises all continuing education programs and activities proposed to be taken up in a single district. However, in the first year of the implementation of the priority is given to the identification and setting up of CEC and CECs, identification and training of prereks, establishment of reading rooms and libraries, acquisition of audiovisual material and other infrastructure, and organization of various extension and developmental activities. Major innovative programs are scheduled to be taken up when the requisite infrastructure and manpower is suitably available to sustain these programs. Following are the types of programs expected to be offered by the CECs. A. Equivalency programs, APE. B. Quality of life improvement programs, SLIP. C. Individual interest promotion programs, IZPP. D. Skill development and income generation programs, SDIGP, and future-oriented programs, FOP. A. Equivalency programs, APES. The objective of equivalency program is to provide an alternate education program equivalent to the existing formal system of education, be it related to general or vocational education. This program is targeted towards those neo-literates who aspire to continue their education and acquire a Degree 1 certification that would place them on an equal standing with others who have successfully completed their studies in the formal system of education. Thus, the underlying objective is to bring parity between different systems of education, thereby ensuring that every learner has equality of opportunity if Helsh desires to continue studying. The main aim of this program is to provide a mechanism by which neo-literates can acquire basic education, since most of them may find it difficult to access the formal school system due to its rigidities of age, prior educational status, barriers of geography, distance, social restrictions on girls' education, lack of infrastructure, etc. The open learning and non-formal systems are more suitable for such learning. The National Institute of Open Learning, NIOL, has a provision to offer equivalency programs. The equivalency program is visualized as a multi-level program that would enable neo-literates to move upwards in a step-by-step manner. In this program, 3 levels are envisaged. Level 1 would be equivalent to class 3/4 of the formal system. Level 2 would be equivalent to class 5/6 of the formal system. Level 3 would be equivalent to class 7/8 of the formal system. B. Quality of Life Improvement Programs, QLIP. While almost all aspects of education contribute in one way or the other to improve the quality of life, some special types of educational activities may be more directed to improve the general well-being by improving the standard of living and degree of excellence of one's lifestyle. Such activities come under the nomenclature of Quality of Life Improvement Programs, QLIPs. According to the UNESCO definition, quality of life refers to the level of well-being of the society and the degree of satisfaction of a number of human needs. Quality of life improvement programs can be functionally defined as programs aimed at equipping learners and the community with essential knowledge, attitudes, values and skills which enable them to improve the quality of life as individuals and as members of the community. QLIPs are, therefore, development-focused and have a strong future orientation. With the help of such program, the community establishes a vision of future and devises and undertakes development activities to achieve that vision through education. The concept of quality of life has different meanings, interpretation, and expectation for different individuals and communities. Reviewing various ideas and definitions together, in the Indian context, the concept, quality of life, could be viewed as a concept involving a relative assessment of human well-being in terms of the overall standards of living of society and the degree of excellence in an individual's lifestyle. The concept of well-being is interpreted in terms of satisfying both economic and social needs. The target group of QLIPs comprises neoliterates, youth groups, interested individuals, farmers, small entrepreneurs, unskilled semi-skilled workers, panchayat functionaries, etc. Women and other vulnerable groups would be especially targeted. Indicators for quality of life improvement programs. There are various aspects of quality of life which may be expressed in the form of indicators as follows. Biological. The satisfaction of basic biological needs is of fundamental importance both for survival and quality of life. These needs include availability of food, cleanliness of air, availability of clean water, freedom from illness, quality of housing, a good sanitation. Social. The freedom to make choices and decisions and to participate in the affairs of society is an important dimension of democratic life. It includes the elements such as quality of family life, example, parenting, socialization process, freedom of choice and decision making, level of participation in social affairs, absence of discrimination, access to social services, access to cultural activities, degree of rule of law. Economic. From the individual point of view, two factors are important: opportunity to work to earn adequate income, and to have enough money to purchase things of comfort. From the societal point of view, the whole society should benefit from an equitable distribution of economic opportunity. Important elements of this aspect are opportunity to work and earn adequate income, a level of achieving self-actualization through financial security, a QLITY in distribution of wealth, adequate physical infrastructure, humanistic, psychological aspects like human feelings and emotions, happiness, education, harmony, spiritual fulfillment, peace of mind and general contentment are critical to attaining mental well-being and improved quality of life. These include level of happiness, degree of inner harmony, level of spiritual fulfillment, degree of contentment and peace of mind, loyalty, ethics and tolerance. Environment, natural as well as human environment are very important. The present generations should ensure that the quality of the natural environment and availability of natural resources are not degraded for future generations. The important environmental elements are natural environment, natural resources, human environment. QLIPs face a number of constraints during the process. Among these, the most important are as follows: psychological barriers, a.g., vision gap, confidence gap, stereotyping, absence of technical skills, absence of human relation skills, economic constraints, administrative constraints, lack of political support, structural problems. C. Individual interest promotion programs, IIPPs. The objective of individual interest promotion programs, IIPPs, in continuing education is to provide individuals the opportunity to participate in, and to learn a. social, b. cultural, c. spiritual, d. health, a. physical, and f. artistic interests of their choice. In operational terms, activities under the IIPPs can be identified as those that are largely meant for spending leisure time, especially hobbies. Some of the leisure time activities and hobbies require skill acquisition on the part of the participants. They include tailoring, knitting, dressmaking, preparation of food items, repair of household appliances, etc. Since they require skill acquisition, they may better be considered under the income-generating programs. The activities that can be organized under the IIPPs may be categorized into 6 broad groups, as mentioned above, viz. A. social, b. cultural, c. spiritual, d. health, a. physical, and f. artistic. Social activity. A number of activities can be conducted under this category. Some of the activities that can be offered under this category include celebration of festivals, holding melas, organizing exhibitions, having get-together programs, excursions. Excursions may be organized as a recreational as well as educational activity. It may include tours and picnics, and visits to a number of places such as natural sites, historical places, industrial urban locations, ideal villages, pilgrimage places, etc. Cultural activity. A number of activities can be conducted under this category. Participants may be attracted to them for their entertainment value or as leisure activities. Some of the activities that can be offered under this category include folk art, song, music, dance, drama, puppetry, painting, drawing and handicrafts. Selection of the type of activities, whether they should be, for instance, local songs and dances or film songs of regional and national level, must be made as per the interest of the participants. Those interested can be taught handicrafts using locally available materials. Spiritual activities meant to cater to the spiritual needs of the individuals may be organized. They may include holding religious festivals, religious discourses, pilgrimages to religious places. Health. Under this category, activities meant to improve the health situation of individuals may be conducted. They may include medical checkups, disease eye detection camps, health camps, yoga workshops. Physical activity. Under this category, activities of games and sports can be organized. They will have to be selected from the locally relevant sports games as per the interests of the participants. Art. Some activities of artistic interests can be organized, such as sculpture, designing and simple skills like rangoli and mehandi application, etc. Identification of activities. The first step in the implementation of the IIPPs is the identification of the activities that are of interest to the participants. It has to be the outcome of participation of individual interest promotion programs for the people, because the activities have to be of their interest. The prereq can just facilitate the process. The exercise of selecting the activities with the participation of the people is a continuous process in the CE. Group meetings of the interested participants may be organized for selecting the activities and for finalizing the details of the individual programs, such as the venue, time and contents. It may be useful to finalize the details of a program in advance, so that it can be announced for the benefit of all those who are likely to participate. Skill development and income generation programs, SDIGP, and future-oriented programs, FOP. As visualized by NLM, one of the important target-specific programs of continuing education is skill development and income generation. According to UNESCO, an income generation program, IGP, helps participants acquire or upgrade vocational skills and enables them to conduct income generating activities. This general definition was focused more sharply by an additional statement. IGPs are those vocational continuing education programs delivered in a variety of contexts which are directed in particular towards those people who are currently not self-sufficient in a modern world. Skill development and income generation is one of the key target-specific programs of continuing education. It helps participants acquire or upgrade vocational skills and enable them to conduct income-generating activities. These are largely focused on the development of functional knowledge with a view to making learning relevant to living and working. A large number of programs involving varying levels of vocational skills can be introduced in continuing education. Skill development and income generation programs are functional in the sense that these are largely focused on the development of functional knowledge with a view to making learning relevant to living and working. Providing vocational skills means equipping people for their direct involvement in some economic or productive activity. Acquiring vocational skills is the ability of engaging oneself in an occupation or gainful employment. Every member of the community with special focus on neo-literates and those who have had little or no formal education form the priority target group of these programs. Government of India, 2005. The following are a few important aspects related to these programs. Identification of programs. A large number of programs involving varying levels of vocational skills can be introduced in continuing education. The selection or identification of programs depends upon the direct correlation between the learners and the world of work. Other considerations are that these should be relevant, useful and sustainable in the local situation. However, the choice of programs should also include non-conventional vocations which hold prospects for the future. These programs may be categorized in three parts depending upon the requirement of funds for organizing these programs. To begin with, programs involving development of simple vocational skills may be identified, but there should be some scope for the upgradation of these skills for the skills already acquired by the learners. Curricula should be designed in modular form representing the levels of skill development I.A. from simple to difficult. Special features of the curriculum. These include Competency-based and modular in nature. Integration of managerial and entrepreneurial skills. Judicious mix of theory and practice and as per learning capacity of the learners. Allocation of instructional hours for each unit of the course content. Syllabi should be supplemented by list of tools, equipments and materials. Syllabi should be supplemented by teaching learning materials that help in the retention of literacy skills, reinforcement of learning, and should envisage evaluation both in theory and practice. Technical support, given a wide variety of skill development programs, delivered in multiple, non-formal modes and taking into account their matching with the job potential available in the market, it is imperative that a networking, collaboration, coordination mechanism be developed for smoother implementation. The technical support required for IGPs includes the following: making available infrastructural facilities, supply of tools, equipment and raw materials, resource persons, trainers and their training, designing and development of curriculum, development and preparation of teaching learning materials, providing suitable audio-visual via computer-aided techniques, and providing facilities for exhibitions, sales and marketing of the trainee products. Based on these broad requirements, the following agencies are expected to be closely associated in the organization of skill development: Jana Shikshan Sansthans, JSSs, State Resource Centers, SRCs, District Industries Centers, DICs, Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, Community Polytechnics, Khadi, small-scale industries, private, commercial organizations, National Bank for Agriculture, 000, 4 sports items and recreational materials, radio, TV etc. 7,500, 5 bicycle 1,500, total 25,000, recurring expenditure. Look at the screen. In addition, there is a provision for providing 12 rupees, 0001 per annum for hired building, for housing CEC where no public building is available. An illustrative financial pattern, non-recurring and recurring, for a nodal CEC is given below. Non-recurring, one-time grant only for initial year. Look at the screen. In addition, there is a provision of Rs. 24,000 per annum for hired building for housing nodal CECs where no public building is available. The guidelines stipulate 1 prereq and 1 assistant prereq each for CECs at Rs. 700 p.m. for prereq and 500 rupees p.m. for assistant prereq. For NCECs there is a provision of 1,200 rupees p.m. for prereq and 700 rupees p.m. for assistant prereq. Under the scheme of continuing education, the central government provides 100% financial assistance for implementation of the scheme for the first 3 years of the project. For the 4th and 5th year of the project, the central government and state government are required to share the expenditure in the ratio of 50-50. After the initial 5 years of the project, the concerned state government is to assume full responsibility for functioning of the continuing education centers established under the scheme after central funding ceases. www.nlm.nic.in 1.3 Mahila SAMAKHYA program. Besides the above programs, an innovative program Mahila Samakhya Education for Women's Equality is currently in operation in India for the promotion of adult continuing education among girls and women. Pursuant to the objectives of the National Policy on Education, 1986, the Mahila Samakhya scheme was started in 1989 to translate the goals enshrined in the NPE into a concrete program LRNE for the education and empowerment of women in rural areas, particularly those from socially and economically marginalized groups. The MS scheme recognizes the centrality of education in empowering women to achieve equality. The program aims at enhancing the self-image and self-confidence of women and creating an environment where women can seek knowledge and information and play a positive role in their own development and development of society. The Mahila Sangha, Women's Collective, is the focal point in each village which provides space where women can meet, be together and begin the process of reflecting, asking questions and addressing their needs through the Sanghas. The process of mobilizing and organizing women is done by a Sahyogini or facilitator who looks after the villa a Develo in the critical faculty in the members of the Sangha and enhancing learning, underlies all Mahila Samakhya activities. The program has not only succeeded in generating demands for literacy and education for children, especially girls, but also in addressing a wide ranging issues related to health of women, improving civic amenities, demanding equal and minimum wages, tackling violence against women, child marriage, and child labor, seeking and obtaining literacy and numeracy skills for women, and organizing residential courses through Mahila Shikshan Kendras, women's training centers, for young girls, women who could not get the benefit of formal school education. As on March 2007, the program has been in operation in 1,000 villages spread over 83 districts in 9 states viz. Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. From the financial year 2007-08, the program is being extended to 2 new states, i.e. Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. The budgetary allocation for the scheme for the financial year, i.e. 2007-08, is 34 crore rupees. Evaluation studies have shown that Mahila Sanghas through various programs and awareness campaigns have brought about a change in the outlook of rural women, and the effects are evident in various facets of life at home, within the family, the community and at the block and panchayat levels. The program has also focused on awareness of the need to educate the children, especially girls, to give equal status and opportunities, which has resulted in a direct impact on enrollment and retention of girls in school. Kameshwari. 2002, 1.4 Financial allocations and utilization. A review of the financing of adult education during last 50 years brings out 2 clear-cut phases. In the first phase, spreading over the period 1951 to 79, the first to fifth 5-year plans, the total outlay for adult education was nominal and ranged between Rs. 0.50 to 180 million. In the second phase, spreading over the period 1980 to 2002, the 6th to 10th 5-year plan, the total outlay increased many-fold and ranged between 1,280 rupees to 17,734 million, see table 1.1. While the increase in outlay during the first phase was nearly 3.5 times, in the second phase the increase was nearly 12-fold. In terms of percentage of funds allocated, with the exception of the first plan, when about 3% was allocated to adult education, in the subsequent plans, it ranged between 1% and 9%. Comparative increase in allocation to adult education during the first plan may be due to the special interest taken by the first education minister, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who was keen to make an immediate start with social education. Shah, 1993. In fact, even before the formulation of the first plan, the education minister had allocated 10 million rupees to adult education. After the demise of Azad, his successors did not show much interest in adult education. Besides, there was an acute shortage of resources caused by the India-China war. Hence, in the third plan, 1961 to 66, adult education received only 1% of the education outlay. The low percentage of allocation to adult education during 1950 to 70 may be not only due to the official policy of promoting elementary education, but also increased investment in industries, agriculture and infrastructure development. There has been a significant increase in the total plan outlay from the first to 10th 5-year plan. The outlay on education and adult education also recorded gradual increase from the first to 8th plan, while the total plan outlay doubled from 4 rupees 341,000 to 8,592,000 million from 8th to 9th plan. The plan outlay for education also recorded an increase from 212,180 rupees to 535.250 million. But in the case of adult education, there has been a decline from 8th to 9th plan, I.A., from 15,550 rupees to 11,020 million, I.A., from 7.33% to 3.06%. The decline was very striking in terms of the percentage of funds allocated for adult education to total plan, i.e. from 0.36 to 0.12, from 8th to 10th plan. Although the outlay for adult education did increase during the 10th plan to 17,734 million rupees, in terms of percentage of adult education outlay to total education, there was a decline from 2.06% to 1.98%. See table 1.2. The plan-wise utilization of funds for adult education viz education, table No. 3, brings out considerable fluctuations. Compared to the 91% utilization of funds for education, there was 100% utilization of funds for adult education during the first plan. This trend, however, changed during the second and third plans. While percentage of expenditure on total education was 105. During the third plan, it was only 33% for adult education. Compared to 71% of expenditure on total education, the percentage of expenditure on adult education was 127% during the fifth plan. There was substantial increase in Expenditure on education and adult education during 6th, 7th and 8th plans, which saw the launching of National Adult Education and National Literacy Mission. See Figure 1.1. While utilization of funds on education doubled from 8th to 9th plan, I.A. 274,580 rupees to 529,890 million, it declined in the case of adult education, i.e. from 11,420 rupees to 8,680 million, see Table 1.3. What is striking is the sharp decline in expenditure on adult education from the 7th plan to 8th plan, i.a. 11% to 75%, notwithstanding the increased allocation. Perhaps, because of the decline in the expenditure during the 8th plan, adult education did not succeed in attracting more funds from the government during the 9th plan. However, there was an increase in utilization of funds to 81% during the 9th and 10th plans, Shah, 2003. The failure to utilize 100% funds for adult education may be due to a number of reasons. 1.4.1 Reasons for non-utilization of funds. Some of the review committees on adult education, especially on social education and national adult education programs, NAEP, have touched upon the financial aspects to a limited extent and commented on the defective financial administration, procedural difficulties, and weak financial monitoring to be some of the reasons for the failure to utilize the full grant, RC report of the Review Committee on National Adult Education Program, 1980. The Controller and Auditor General's CAG office, which undertakes periodical audit of the programs of the civil departments of Union Government, made detailed investigation into the financial management of adult education programs. Since 1986, the Controller and Auditor General's office has brought out 3 detailed reports on adult education programs implemented during the 6th and 7th 5-year plans. The CAG report of 1985-86, which made a thorough study of the financing of adult education during the 6th 5-year plan, covering rural functional literacy projects, RFLP, Shramik Vidyapeethas, SVs, Neham Yuvak Kendrishta, NYKs, adult education programs implemented through universities and colleges, revealed that achievements of these programs were far below expectations and targets fixed. It revealed several financial irregularities, viz., diversion of funds, purchase of non-permissible items, non-return of advances, interpolation of records, non-submission of audited statements and utilization certificates. The CAG report of 1.991, which test audited the adult education programs implemented during 1985 to 90, further reiterated the earlier observations and pointed out that as many as 261 voluntary agencies which received the first installment of grants neither applied for the second installment nor submitted the reports and audited accounts. It observed that several states, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, kept a large chunk of adult education funds outside the government account in separate banks. It was further pointed out that out of the 21 agencies entrusted with the work of evaluation during 1985 to 90, as many as 14 agencies did not submit the report. Government of India, 1987. The third review of CAG, conducted during 1995-96, which examined the implementation of total literacy campaigns, TLCs, in 5 districts of Punjab, showed that the state government did not release its share. The shortfall in expenditure ranged between 34 to 85%. Mainly due to the inflated projections in the project report. Several financial irregularities committed by the Zilla Saksharta Samitis, ZSS, by making inadmissible payments of honorarium to persons holding non-sanctioned posts, purchase of surplus teaching learning materials and absence of monitoring and evaluation of TLCs have also been pointed out in the CAG report, Union Government. 1992. The CAG reports are submitted to the President of India and laid on the table of Parliament. It hardly evoked any discussion in the Parliament. Only a couple of members of Parliament seemed to have taken interest by asking questions. Some of them wanted to know whether the amount sanctioned for adult education was misused by diverting it to other schemes in various states, and if so, the details thereof, state-wise, and the action taken by the government to ensure proper utilization of the amount. The Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi, categorically said no to the first part of question and stated that proper utilization of funds is ensured through state-level monthly monitoring meetings in which the implementation of the programs and the expenditure Position are reviewed and corrective measures required, if any, are undertaken. Lok Sabha, 2001. In reality, the CAG report, 1997, observed that in Punjab no monthly monitoring meeting had taken place. One of the members of parliament asked a question on the failure of the government to utilize 2,520 million rupees earmarked for NLM during the 8th plan and the steps taken to fix responsibility for the underspending. According to the Honorable Minister for Education, Dr. Joshi, the reasons for the shortfall in expenditure NCRE as follows. The communally and voluntary agencies extended assistance in cash and kind towards implementation of the program. More than 10 million volunteers from different sections of society, e.g. students, social workers, ex-servicemen, and retired government officials served as volunteer teachers and trainers too. ZAK illiterate, the adult illiterates in the age group 15 to 35. Financial controls were tightened to ensure optimum release and utilization of funds. Releases were made in installments strictly as per the requirements of the literacy program. Subject to submission of utilization certificates where overdue. The monitoring of the program was made more effective by enjoining upon the state directorates of adult education to hold monitoring meetings every month. Also, there was an economy of 629.5 million rupees in the budget allocation of NLM during the year 1995-96, Rajya Sabha, 1997. One of the reasons for the non-utilization of funds may be traced to the inordinate delay on the part of ZSS in submitting the audited statement of accounts and utilization certificates to NLM, because of which the balance amount is withheld or its release gets delayed. According to the Director General of National Literacy Mission, Shri Jagan Mathew, some of the officials of ZSS find it difficult to prepare the statement of accounts as per the NLM guidelines. He felt that unless the ZSS submits proper accounts, the Internal Finance Division of the Ministry of Human Resource Development may not approve the expenditure and release the balance amount, and hence on several occasions, the incomplete statements of account were returned to ZSS. Mathew, 2002. It has been noted that in certain states, especially in Bihar, non-utilization of funds was due to the inordinate delay in the process of operationalization of the project in some of the districts. Das and Singh, 2002. In West Godavari district in Andhra Pradesh, considerable delay in the utilization of funds was caused due to the release of central grants to consolidated fund of the state treasury instead of ZSS. Rao, 2002. To what extent is bureaucracy responsible for utilization of funds? While it may be true that bureaucrats can facilitate expenditure by timely approval and expeditious release of funds, often they are handicapped due to the prevalent rules and regulations. As one of the bureaucrats observed, not only do I have to get convinced of the appropriateness of expenditure but also have to convince a number of persons in this process of compliance with administrative procedures. Lumba, 2002. The earmarked funds for the program remain unspent, which seems to have agitated some of the grassroots level workers who feel that underutilization of funds is a time-honored bureaucratic practice to justify subsequent budget cut. Sharma, 2002. Sometimes, it has been observed that certain bureaucrats sleep over the files when they do not get clear signals from above or they suspect the bona fides of the implementation agency. Sometimes, the non-utilization of funds may be traced to the administrative lethargy of the officials dealing with adult education, as most of them do not recognize the importance and role of literacy in development. According to the former Director General of National Literacy Mission, Shri Bhaskar Chatterjee, situation could be improved if the political leadership shows its commitment to adult education and the key bureaucrats play a proactive role. Chatterjee, 2003. Unlike higher and school education, which have strong and stable institutions like the UGC, NCERT, ICSSR to provide leadership, the institutional infrastructure in adult education remains rather weak. Besides, there is no continuity of committed leadership in adult education. This may be one of the reasons why some of the junior administrative staff sit over the files without any specific reason. This laxity on their part is often termed as procedural delay. Venkateshwarlu, 2003. Some of the delays are overcome when the senior staff follows up the matter or the concerned agency approaches the staff. While the senior officials are routinely transferred, the junior staff remains in the same position for long and tends to develop vested interest. The frequent transfer of officials at district level and their unfamiliarity with Government of India's accounting system often delays the preparation of statement of accounts. In most of the ZSSs, there is no accountant, and the district collector, who functions as the chairman of ZSS, is overburdened with routine work and finds little time for adult education. Telephonic interview with Sri Vishnu Kumar, the former director of Directorate Adult Education, New Delhi, held on November 17, 2002. Moreover, some of the district collectors are very cautious in spending adult education funds, mainly due to the involvement of NGOs and media persons in the program, who may raise hue and cry if there is some misappropriation. In comparison with other developmental schemes, the funds for adult education are too small in amount for the district collector to bother about. It has been reported that whenever a district collector takes interest in literacy, Haishe finds a way of spending the funds by involving the media persons in the programs, so that they do not raise unnecessary criticism. Being aware of this problem of underutilization, the Directorate Adult Education organized orientation workshops for the officials of ZSSs of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar for improving financial management, which greatly helped in expediting the submission of accounts and release of the balance amount. Kumar, 2002. Organization of regular workshops on financial management in all the states may greatly help in improving the utilization of funds. If an accounts officer of the NLM could regularly visit different ZSSs, the process of the preparation of accounts could be expedited. There is a need to demystify the accounting system to the officials of ZSS and further simplify the financial proformas of the Government of India. 1.5 Summary. The main thrust of the current adult education policy and program is on continuing education, which aims at providing a variety of avenues of lifelong learning opportunities to all sections of society. Unlike the earlier literacy campaigns based on volunteerism, the continuing education program is institutionalized in the form of CECs, which are managed by paid predics. The CECs are functioning like grassroots level institutions catering to the educational and training needs of the local community. As on March 2007, the CE program was in operation in 323 districts in the country and was likely to expand to all 600 districts by the end of the 11th five-year plan. Apart from the CE program, the Mahila Samakhiya program, which focuses on women's empowerment, is a major program which is in operation in 11 states. Notwithstanding the importance accorded to adult education in the several policy and five-year plan documents of Government of India during the last 3 decades, financial allocations have remained much below the actual requirements of the program. On many occasions, the allocated funds have not been fully utilized. Besides, there has been misappropriation of adult education funds. While the cumbersome financial procedures and disinterest of bureaucracy in adult education have been partly responsible for the underutilization of funds, there has been no pressure group to plead the case of adult education. The various organizations connected with adult education, viz., National Literacy Mission, State Literacy Missions, Zilla Sakshartha Samitis, University Departments of Adult Education, State Resource Centers, Jan Shikshan Sansthans and NGOs function in an isolated manner and confine themselves to routine activities. These organizations need to come together and create a strong professional group to promote the cause of adult education. A review of funds for adult education shows that the allocated funds are not fully utilized. One of the causes for the ineffectiveness of adult education program may be traced to the pattern of utilization of resources and not to the provision of outlays. As noted by several committees, especially the Committee on Plan Projects and Auditor General of India, cumbersome administrative procedures, rigidity of financial norms, moral turpitude and biased attitude towards adult education are some of the factors which have hampered the utilization of adult education funds. As rioted by J.P. Naik, we are a nation of good planners, but bad implementers. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.